This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials, and today we have a podcast called Winning, and of course the dumbest bill in America. And our millennials today actually aren't even millennials, they're Gen Z. We have Logan Nagel and Corey Atanasoff. Did I say that correctly?
Got it correct.
All right. So they're actually both Gen Z, and we also have Christopher Hopkins, our assistant producer, and of course special thanks to Adam Couture, our producer. So first up, we're talking winning, right? That's the name of the podcast. And the reason why we're talking about winning is because we just came off of a week where Donald Trump not only won, he was acquitted. Number one, he was acquitted. But number two, he had a fantastic State of the Union speech. And the reason why I think it was fantastic is because it was very aspirational. It was talking about the kind of country that we are, the kind of country that we aspire to be. Finally, the good Donald Trump stood up, which I thought was excellent. But the Democrats are so tired of this winning on the Republican side that they just went crazy. And so this podcast, we have a bunch of clips from different Democrats and how they're just losing it because they feel as though they're not going to win in November. And we're going to start out, of course, with Congressman Tim Ryan, who just walked out of the State of the Union speech. And here was his response of, in part, why he did so. Here is the clip.
The lies just started to add up. I mean, it started out with disgracefully not shaking Nancy Pelosi's hand. Then the blue-collar boom. When I represent a district that lost 4,000 General Motors jobs, you can go to the Foxconn deal in Wisconsin. You can go to Carrier in Indiana. You can go to Harley-Davidson in that area. So he was lying, Lawrence, and just the lies started to add up. You know, he's talking about the glorification of God. This is a guy who paid off porn stars because he was having sex with them when his wife was pregnant. I mean, give me a break. I mean, how much can a guy take sitting there listening to this stuff? And I just, snuck out and went to FaceTime my 5-year-old son before he went to bed.
I think many members would agree with you on the Democratic side that was a better use of your time.
So, Corey, no one says that Donald Trump's an altar boy, okay? But the fact of the matter is the speech was an aspirational speech, and you're supposed to listen when you're an elected official to the President of the United States when he gives the State of the Union. You're supposed to show decorum.
Oh, absolutely.
And this guy showed no decorum. He just got up and left. I mean, he obviously was running for president at one point, and he decided
failed.
And he
miserably.
Hugely failed, right? So he's a failure. Donald Trump is winning. Of course, the name of the podcast. So what do you think about this clip?
Well, I think he just simply couldn't face, defeat. He's looking at the monster that he's faced for the past going on 4 years, and
that's the first remark from our Gen Z guy. Go ahead, keep going.
And he's sad that he's going to have to deal with another 4 years of it.
And so, Logan, so you're also a Gen Zer. It's Mark and the Millennials, but today it's Mark and the Gen Zers. So what do you think about this?
I think it shows a lot about his characters, that when he was confronted about it, the first thing he started talking about was Donald Trump, why he doesn't like him, all that. That shows a lot about someone's character, whether his politics are right or not. Dishing and throwing that kind of stuff out, that derogatory stuff, that is not something that makes your character look good, and that's not something that made him look good when he was confronted.
Yeah, he's still throwing mud, right?
Yeah, clearly not material to be president.
Yeah, I mean, he's still throwing mud. I mean, look, this president is not perfect. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows all of his shortcomings. But he finally showed up at a State of the Union speech and kept it really pithy and very aspirational. And yet this guy, he just goes negative right away because they know Donald Trump is winning. We have a second clip from Congressman Tim Ryan. We broke up the clips. This second clip basically attacks Trump over his job creation. And here it is.
Well, we could go through, and I heard Stephanie Ruhle on earlier talking about the economics. Obama had more job creation in the last 3 years than Trump did in his first 3 years. We can go through the prescription drug deal. We can go through him talking about pre-existing conditions and helping people on health care, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I think for me, he's a divider. The country wants to heal. The country wants to come together, Democrats and Republicans, and he's just dividing. There was that beautiful moment with the Tuskegee Airmen in the grandson. Beautiful moments, right? 30 seconds later, he's going after immigrants. I mean, stop. Just stop. The country wants to come together. We're tired of the fear. We're tired of the division. We want to heal. And he's throwing gasoline on all these cultural rifts. and trying to benefit politically from them, which I think could be his undoing as we move into the fall.
So there you have it. So Congressman Ryan is saying that Trump was dividing people, and the congressman, wants to bring people together. The congressman's the one that walked out. That's why I played that second clip.
Bold statement.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one that walked out. He's the one that's dividing because he knows he's losing. He knows Trump's winning. I mean, what do you think, Logan?
I think, going back to what you just said, yeah, he walked out. He knew that he was losing. He knew he didn't stand a chance, so he walked out. And
no decorum.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to just, swallow his pride and say, okay, this guy is the duly elected president of the United States. Maybe he's saying things that I don't like. God forbid, Trump's talking about all of the job creation that has occurred under his presidency, the strongest economy in modern American history by far. And this guy is saying, oh, well, he just lied about everything. I mean, this is the same narrative they've been using for 3 years, and they just failed because Trump was acquitted. It's just never enough. I mean, what do you think? Corey?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing going back and forth. And what he's really, his folly right here is that when he's saying that he's taking people apart and, trying to split the country, it only comes to matters like he brought up the immigration. And it only comes to things that he won't reach across the aisle for. He's calling out Trump for standing by his morals and standing by what he's believed his entire presidency. So when he comes out and he shows the jobs that he's created, when he comes out and shows his progress that he's made and that he's going to make on immigration, then he gets called out.
And you brought up immigration. Interestingly enough, with immigration, we're actually going to talk about a bill later this episode about the dumbest bill in America about immigration. But the idea that the President of the United States can't have a discussion about immigration, he can't actually talk about the fact that we are a nation and nations have borders and nations have laws and we are a nation of laws and we want to enforce our laws. And by the way, Congress, if you don't like the laws, you can change them if you want to. But to walk out and say, I'm not even going to compromise anyway. That's
childish.
Classic. Yeah, Tim Ryan. You're a big loser. That's why you couldn't even win in your own primary. So next up, Nancy Pelosi says that Donald Trump inherited economic momentum from Obama. It wasn't Donald Trump's economy. Donald Trump's really benefiting from the Obama economy. And that is really what's happened. I mean, yeah, right. So we actually have a clip. Look, podcast people, podcast land, you got to listen to this because Nancy Pelosi, not only is she losing it, right? So not only is she losing it because Trump is winning, but generally speaking, it sounds like she has dementia when she's talking about this issue because she's hyperventilating, actually. She's so upset. And here is the clip.
During the 8 years of when President Bush was president, the job growth was slow. Under President Obama, we gained more than 14 million private sector jobs. And during his presidency, and that is far more prorated in terms of years than what this president has created. A momentum, a path of $14 million is not a mess, Mr. President. And then during his presidency, we rescued the auto industry and all that brought back to the economy. And during the administration, more than 20 million people were afforded quality, affordable health care, but more. In addition to that, 150 million families with pre-existing conditions got a new benefit that enabled them to have access to health care as well as other benefits of no lifetime limit, no annual limit. Child is up until 26 years old can stay on your benefit. Being a woman, no longer a pre-existing condition. So when he talks about, I'm going to make health care, the fact is he did not inherit a mess. He inherited a momentum of growth in our economy.
Oh, yeah, sure he did. First of all, did she not sound like she's losing it? I mean, he's winning, she's losing.
President.
I mean, she's apoplectic. I mean, here is Nancy Pelosi. She's talking about healthcare, which he doesn't understand is the best way to get the greatest healthcare for you and your family is to have a great job. If you don't have a strong economy, you can't afford health care, and nor can the government help people that can't afford health care for themselves. A strong economy solves all of those problems. And obviously, tweaking of the Obamacare law, needless to say, I mean, it had so many problems, but according to Democrats, Obamacare was going to solve everything. But then she's saying, not only did that solve everything, and Trump is ruining everything, but the Obama economy is what we have today. I want to hear the Gen Zers on this because you guys are a lot younger than millennials. You must have some sort of opinion about Nancy Pelosi, first of all.
Well, I just want to point out how she claimed that they rescued the auto industry.
Yes, yes. They
thought
bailed them out.
Yeah, they bailed them out.
out.
Yeah, using tax dollars on a failing business.
Exactly.
Let's rescue it.
Yeah, because General Motors was failed.
Pumping millions of dollars into a bar nobody goes to.
Yes,
But
yes.
It's the same thing as the last guy, is they can't stand to see us winning.
That's exactly it. Logan, what do you think about Pelosi?
I think
Does she sound like a crazy grandmother, or does she sound like just mean?
she sounds like my grandmother. No, that's a joke. That's a joke, of course. That's a joke. But
Can't wait for your parents to hear
no,
this one.
that's a joke, of
Hope
course.
she's not a listener.
No, but she's complaining about something other than trying to find a solution, and that's where the problem and these divisions and cultural divisions come from. When people are looking more for pointing out what the other side's doing wrong, pointing out what the enemy's doing wrong, not so much looking for a solution, not so much looking for that middle ground. And that's what Nancy Pelosi, and that's what anyone who gets up and complains and instead of trying to fix the problem does.
Welcome to politics.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And she lost it also because at the State of the Union speech, the clip that we heard from her was post State of the Union speech, and that was her takeaway. But at the State of the Union speech, she ripped up Donald Trump's speech. Such a thing has never happened that I'm aware of that has been documented in American history. That just, once again, there's no decorum, there's no respect. She's talking about dividing. Congressman Ryan is talking about dividing, and then look what they're doing. It's just ridiculous. Here is the response of the American people. Here's apparently C-SPAN. C-SPAN has a call-in program where people can call and give their opinions about what they thought about the State of the Union speech and what they think about modern politics today. And so post-State of the Union speech, C-SPAN was hammered with phone calls of people that were really upset, specifically about Nancy Pelosi's conduct and how she ripped up the speech, but also about how Democrats sat on their hands when Trump was introducing various special guests, and they just sat there. They wouldn't even stand up because they're so angry at him, they can't even be happy. So we have a clip of just a regular, everyday American calling in to C-SPAN, and this is very representative of the kinds of calls that they received, and here it is.
Cut you off. Kathleen in Placerville, California, good evening to you. What's your reaction to the speech?
I agree wholeheartedly with the other callers. I am a Democrat as well, but no longer will I vote Democrat. I think it's outrageous that they sat there when all these good things are happening to our country and how much we love our country, and they looked like they hated our country. And Nancy Pelosi, the whole time she's sitting up there with a disgusting look on her face, it's outrageous. I will never vote Democrat again, and I'm sick of it, and my whole family feels the same way. My husband, my friends are sitting here, all former Democrats. We all voted for Hillary last time, and therefore never, ever will we ever vote Democrat again.
So that is very representative of the calls that they received all day at C-SPAN of how angry people were with the optics of Nancy Pelosi ripping up the speech and the optics of Democrats sitting on their hands when various American heroes were introduced simply because the person who did the introduction was the President of the United States. I know that you guys probably saw different clips. Perhaps you saw the whole SO2 speech, State of the Union speech. I want thoughts on what you thought about this. What did Jen see? Do you want to see your congressmen and congresswomen actually stand up when these great Americans are being introduced? What are your thoughts?
I think we should be respectful when someone in office, whether that's a president, whether it's a congressman, we need to be respectful about that. We can't be ripping up their speech, regardless of whether you agree with them, regardless of even if they're right. We have to be respectful and we have to respond to that intelligently. And what we saw at the State of the Union was not respectful and it was not intelligent.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And the interesting thing is, but do you think that's what you saw? I mean, other than what you're being told, like as Gen Zers, what do you think, Corey?
Well, got a big opinion on this. Back in the 1800s, they would just duel each other. You didn't like somebody, you just duel them.
So there's a solution.
There's that. But I'm an avid Twitter user, and follow people my age, a lot of them, and a lot growing up personally in Maryland. It's a lot of left people, and after this particular incident, I saw an outpour of people, Blues, Democrats, like going against her, saying that what she did was just stupid.
Yes,
just dumb. Like doesn't have any honor. This is the reason why Donald Trump is most likely going to steal this election. They just had to not mess it up.
By steal, you mean win the election?
By stealing, he's going to win the election.
Yes,
because they're taking new voters. Like that speech that she ripped up. Like everybody who was honored in there. By ripping that up, you're just dishonoring it.
You're dishonoring. That's kind of, it's well said. That's exactly what my thought was too, is first of all, I would be honored to meet any president of the United States. And if that president of the United States, no matter who it was, handed to me a document that was an official document and said, here, I want you to have this, I would keep it. And I would honor it because it is a president, you're respecting the office. And every president has things you don't like, and every president has things that you do like. And it's incredible that we're at this really weird place in American history where folks can't even stay in the same room with each other, and they can't even be happy for people that are succeeding or winning, of course. And MSNBC anchor Katie Tur, she actually had an incredibly stupid statement. By the way, folks, in podcast land, she's an anchor of MSNBC, an anchor, not just a reporter. And she's actually talking with a group of people, and she's talking about gerrymandering. And she asks the question, hey, since the Republicans control the Senate, the United States Senate, you think gerrymandering will help the Republicans keep the Senate? We're going to talk about this in a minute with the Gen Zers. But first, here is the clip.
Brett Kavanaugh was appointed by a president who lost the popular vote, and he was confirmed by a Senate which represented less than half of the country, right? I mean, that is a stark example, and it's one that Mitch McConnell has used repeatedly to act in contrast to the House.
It's a bit of a kerfuffle.
It is. It's a bit of a conundrum.
So, what's the resolution to that? Is gerrymandering something that would help improve the situation? How does that sort of divide promote consensus in the Senate or even in the House?
Well, I mean, they're the only resolution. Gerrymander's not going to do anything because in the Senate we're talking about states, right?
Yeah.
You can't gerrymander states. The only solution is for Democrats to appeal to voters in those states, right? And so one of the things we see, one of the contrasts in American politics right now is that Republicans are much more conservative than are Democrats liberal. Democrats are getting more liberal over time, but Democrats need to be able to appeal to people in those states. And one of the concerns that a lot of Democrats have is how do we do that well at the same time effectively representing our more diverse base and our more diverse electorate.
There is a movement.
Yes. So the anchor, Katie Tur, says, since the Republicans control the United States Senate and Donald Trump was acquitted and he wasn't removed from office, maybe the answer is gerrymandering the states so that the Senate can then, in other words, cheating, so that Democrats can control the Senate. So here's a civics lesson for everybody out there in podcast land, but in particular for the Gen Zers. We're going to test them now to see how much they know. How do you get elected to the United States Senate? Tell me, how does that work? Go ahead.
So a Senate.
This is Logan. Excuse me. This is not Logan. This is Logan.
This
Sorry,
is Logan. Yes.
Yep.
So a Senate is comprised from 2 people from every state because it's a bicameral system, House and Senate.
So every state gets
2 senators.
2 United States senators, and they're elected statewide, correct? Excellent. So you can't really gerrymander, can you?
No, it's first of all, it's immoral, and it's incredibly difficult to gerrymander on a statewide or a nationwide level.
You can't redraw the state boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's impossible, actually, to redraw that.
In theory, I suppose you could.
Yeah, get Maryland to give West Virginia some of their land.
Right.
See if it works.
In theory, you could go and have a constitutional convention and do lots of redrawing of state lines. That's highly unlikely, of course. But according to Katie Tur, she thought that actually that was a possibility that you could gerrymander. What she really meant was, Gen Zers, and you tell me that I want to see if you guys understand this, in the House of Representatives at the national level, every decade there's a census that's taken and the districts are redrawn because they have to represent to the person the same exact number of people. And in that particular exercise in the House of Representatives, you could, in theory, gerrymander, correct?
Yes. Sure.
And it happens. I mean, and who draws the lines? States do. But states can't gerrymander the United States Senate. Katie Tur, what an idiot. I mean, who watches MSNBC? I'm sorry, if that's an anchor, that network, it's no wonder no one actually watches it.
I mean, forget how she has a job. I want to know how her high school civics teacher got a job.
Great Gen Z comment there. So, look, moving on to the interesting conversation about the primary in Iowa, and we've also had a primary in New Hampshire. So James Carville is just also going crazy about the Trump economy and how Trump is winning and so forth. So James Carville was asked some questions, and he said he's scared to death for the Democrat Party. And James Carville, for history lessons, do you guys know who he was or who he is? He actually ran Bill Clinton's campaign. And Bill Clinton was twice elected to President of the United States. So James Carville, he's a very accomplished political operative and very smart, very commonsensical, and also very likable. And we have a clip on this, and here it is.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for Bernie Sanders being the nominee. A lot of people compare him to Jeremy Corbyn. I say he might be closer to Lopez Obrador in Mexico, somebody who manages to get into power because the existing parties have so disappointed everybody. People are disgusted with Democrats. They don't trust Republicans. They go for Bernie. Do you think that is a path to victory if he makes that argument?
Why do I think people are disgusted with Democrats? We had the highest turnout in 2018 since women were granted the right to vote. We had the biggest margin. We ran a smart campaign, and it worked, all right? It matters who the candidate is. It matters what a party chooses to talk about. I mean, I'm 75 years old. Why am I here doing this? Because I am scared to death. That's why. And we got to let's get relevant here, people, for sure.
He's scared to death because Bernie Sanders is literally, as we speak, taking control of that party, and he realizes his party has gone way too left. That's not where the American people are. That's not where James Carville is. And he's worried about it because Bernie Sanders just won, or according to the Iowa caucuses, which no one really knows who won, he apparently is number 2, but just by, a tiny fraction of a percent behind Pete Buttigieg. So my question to the Gen Zers, what can you tell me? I mean, doesn't this sound like the operatives in the Democrat Party are thinking we've already lost? That's what it sounds like. What do you think, Logan?
Yeah, it sounds that they sound like they're scared about what's going to happen. Whether that fear is put in the right place, I don't know. But what I do know is it seems like the Democratic Party is in a bit of a disarray right now. It seems like it's in a position where it's not standing straight. It's leaning. It's all over the place, and I think that's where that disunity people feel like, and that call that we heard earlier. That's where that disunity is coming from. Is the disarray the Democratic Party is sitting in right now.
I mean, don't you think that with James Carville? I mean, don't you think that when he calls out like this about socialism, do the Gen Zers even understand what socialism is? I mean, are they concerned about it at all, or do they just like watching because they're so young? I understand. I mean, but are they concerned about socialism? Do they think James Carville is right about his concern about his party tacking that way?
I mean, it's the quote, if you're not a Democrat before you're 25, then you're heartless, and if you're not a Republican by the time you're 35, then you're brainless. And, people want to care, and they got big hearts, and they see, free healthcare, free this, free that, and they don't look for a price tag. They don't look for a result. They don't
who's
look
going to pay for
who's
it?
going to pay for it.
How it's going to get paid for? If it's possible.
Because it's them, yeah. And I don't see Bernie Sanders as any more than he's a Ralph Nader. It's just that the Democrats don't have a front runner.
They don't.
They don't.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, so Logan, I mean, in your history classes, social studies, and all this stuff, do they teach you anything about socialism? I mean, you're a Gen Zer. You gotta fill us in. I mean,
so I'm relatively young. One of the youngest people at this table right now.
You are actually the youngest because you are 17 years old.
I am 17 years old. Yeah. So there's no education about what socialism is. Most of the people that I've talked to, they get their information from the internet and the credibility of those sources could easily be put into question. And that's why this generation's done a lot of awesome things. But the one thing that I would say they are faulty on is they don't have the experience to tell when information might be credible and when it might not be credible. And
that's super daggone. That's really insightful. That's really good for a 17-year-old, my word. I mean, that's really what's fallen apart in our societies. We used to have investigative journalists and really professional journalism because we had only print media. And of course, over really the past 25 years, that has been replaced by online media, which it's hard to get paid for, right? So you could be a terrific writer, write this incredible investigative journalism piece, and put it up online, and you're like, well, how am I going to really monetize it? I mean, I can monetize it online in theory by ads and enough people watch it, but you know what that ends up being? Peanuts. It's not enough to live on. So as a result, people can write anything and put it out there, and you're right. So few people even know what's true and what's not true.
I mean, if you want to see an example of how socialism pans out, take a look down in South America. Look at Venezuela. See that.
You know, someone on the Mark and the Millennials Facebook page posted today, socialism, ideas so good, they have to be mandatory. So I thought that was really good. You know, we can't win you over on ideas. We have to force the ideas upon you.
Yeah.
Although Bernie calls it democratic socialism, which is a distinction without a difference. So get this, Governor Andrew Cuomo of the great state of New York basically slams Trump over the DHS trusted traveler ban. It's a Department of Homeland Security's trusted traveler ban for traveling, simplifies traveling, and he will explain it himself. Cuomo does a very good job. We have 2 clips on this. But the Trump administration they hate Cuomo, and Cuomo hates them. But the problem is Trump is winning, and as a result, the blue state governors in particular are going crazy. And we have a clip on this, and this will be self-explanatory. There are 2 clips. Here's the first of 2. Let's hear it.
Why is it important? There's a world of difference between acquittal and exoneration. Acquittal means you have not been found guilty. That's what acquittal means. That he went through the trial in the Senate, and the Senate did not find him guilty. True. It does not mean he was exonerated. Exonerated means I did nothing wrong. I was vindicated. I was cleared. As a matter of fact, the opposite is true.
So there you have it. So that's the initial reaction of course, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, talking about how upset he is that Trump was acquitted. So this was the same press conference. We have a second clip from the same press conference after he unloads on Trump because Trump is winning. Now he goes after Trump having this trusted traveler ban reversal for the state of New York. And here is the clip.
What they're now doing to make political hay, to advance their political argument, is they take the Department of Homeland Security in an abuse of power, in a hyper politicalized use of government. Department of Homeland Security says we're going to disallow the trusted traveler programs, which are basically a pre-clearance for entry into the United States. You go through a background check, you sit with a federal official, and if you gain clearance, when you come into the country, you have an expedited entry because you were already cleared for the Customs and Border Patrol. They're saying we're going to disallow New Yorkers from that program because New York passed a law allowing driver's license for undocumented, and because we don't have access to your DMV records.
Duh, Cuomo. I mean, look, Governor, here's the thing. The Trump administration has revoked this trusted traveler ban for New Yorkers because to the extent that anyone comes into the state of New York from anywhere in the world and they stay in the United States because they got here illegally or they overstay their visa, you're giving them driver's licenses. So we don't even know when someone is traveling in and out of New York, whether they're a citizen or not, because you gave their driver's license. And so this is about public safety, and you would think a guy who runs the great state of New York that has New York City in it would actually care about that. So he's just going crazy. He's coming apart because it's like the president is not just winning on the argument, but the president's argument is correct on the merits. Am I missing something? I almost called you guys millennials, Gen Zers.
I mean, it's action reaction. That's what this is you put driver's license and cars in the hands of people who might not even know that you drive on the right side of the road.
Well, it's not just that. This is about people getting a license, driver's license. Next thing you know, you just show that to the airport because you're traveling within the United States. And then you're not using a passport yet because you're just traveling. And they're saying, well, wait a minute, here's someone who has all the rights and privileges of an American citizen. And as far as we're concerned, they have a driver's license, so why can't they vote too? It's exactly what Cuomo wants.
It's a step.
It's exactly what he wants.
What do you think, Logan?
I think it's just like you said, it's a matter of public safety, and we have to be careful about it. Before we issue a driver's license to anyone, they recently changed it even in Maryland, where there's a whole new system of provisional and learners, and it's a thick process, and it's a lengthy process, and that's for public safety. And with this new implementation in place, it kind of removes that essence of public safety.
Yes, it does. And the thing is they're also coming unraveled on the Democrat side because New Hampshire just had its primary, and the news programs put up presidents who were running in the New Hampshire primary, incumbent presidents who were running for re-election in the New Hampshire primary. So get this, in 1996, Bill Clinton got 76,000 votes when he was running in the primary for re-election. George Bush, the second Bush, got 53,000 votes when he was running for re-election. Obama got only 49,000 votes when he was running for re-election, but nonetheless was re-elected. President Trump in the New Hampshire primary got 120,000 votes. So any reasonable person on the Democrat side or Republican side would look at this, and any reasonable journalist would say, you know what? This guy has a following, and his base is extremely excited to get out and vote. And they're very upset at the impeachment proceedings, and they're also very happy with the economy, and they want to see him get reelected. And I'm convinced that's why the Cuomos of the world and all these other folks we've been listening to this particular podcast are just beside themselves. They don't even know what to say anymore because we finally have a president that's leading and is really lifting people up out of poverty and so forth. Any thoughts on that, about the New Hampshire primary?
I think it shows that even with that many numbers, we can easily assume that members of Democratic, Republican parties have all come together for that. That shows that the disarray of the Democratic parties, that anyone's jumping onto something that's at least stable. Because Donald Trump's presidency is stable. The Republican Party seems to be stable.
Yeah, and the fact that, once again, 120,000 votes, Donald Trump, and the last person who was running for re-election in the primary in New Hampshire got 49,000. And so it's just incredible. That's an incredible number. So Secretary of State Pompeo spoke to the governors of the United States and said to them that they need to be careful because China keeps a list of China-friendly governors, kind of saying almost that there are some governors that are willing to sell out just so that they can do business with China, even if it means that there would be less jobs in China. We're playing this because we always like to play international stuff. We also often like to talk about China because it is by far our biggest rival. It's also our biggest trading partner, next to, of course, Mexico and Canada, the North American trading bloc, if you will. But the Chinese obviously are always a concern because we're really worried that they might just not only overtake us economically, but militarily, and we're not necessarily sure that we want that to happen with a communist country. So nonetheless, Pompeo was speaking to the Governors Association. We like to play these kinds of clips. This is actually breaking news, I think, and it's gotten very little attention. And here is a clip of Pompeo.
What if your new friend offered to invest big money in your state, perhaps in your pension, in industries sensitive to our national security? These aren't hypotheticals. These scenarios are all too true, and they impact American foreign policy significantly. Indeed, last year, a Chinese government-backed think tank in Beijing produced a report that assessed all 50 of America's governors on their attitudes towards China. They labeled each of you friendly, hardline, or ambiguous. I'll let you decide where you think you belong. Someone in China already has. Many of you, indeed, in that report are referenced by name. So here's the lesson. The lesson is that competition with China is not just a federal issue. It's why I wanted to be here today.
It's a state issue too, because if you are a governor of a state, you have the Secretary of State of the United States basically saying to you that the Chinese are coming into your state and they are, to the extent that you are friendly to them, investing in industries that, you know what, are really probably sensitive to national security or, of course, as they have for many, many years, stealing intellectual property. And this is what they do. This is what they have been doing. And I have to tell you something. There was a great Gen Zers, you don't know this. I seriously doubt you've ever read about it, but probably the best Secretary of State or one of the best Secretary of States in my lifetime is Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
And Henry Kissinger is probably certainly top 3 great Secretary of States. This guy, Pompeo, in my opinion, he's right up there because he's watching, he's got his eye on the ball, he's concerned about China, and he's basically saying, look, they're bypassing Congress and they're going directly to you guys, and you guys are giving them tax incentives and other benefits to come into your states. It's not that we don't want them to invest in the United States. We don't want them to be buying our key industries and then learning about them and then closing them down and exporting them back to China, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys should be worried about this because it goes to your job, your ability to have a job when you graduate from college. In your case, Corey, basically graduating from college, and in your case, graduating from high school. Logan, go ahead.
Well, this is a message. Is Pompeo pulled up with guns blazing and told the states, told the governors that we know what you're doing, and your action doesn't come without some kind of firefall afterwards. So when they come out here and
they have a list.
They have a list. And it mentions them by name is the takeaway. So not only are they looking at what they have done, these are interpersonal interactions between the governors and the government of China. So when it comes to that takeover time, they know who to get to.
Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah, I think that adds a lot of bias as far as economy in individual states, which is not something that we usually have. We try to trade on a federal level, as far as I know, and when an outside source comes and infiltrates individual states, that can make a lot of bias. Whether you're about to go into college or whether you're about to graduate, the workforces in different states could be drastically changed by that.
So here's what's interesting. The federal government and also state governments will often fund research projects in major institutions of higher education, okay? And that's very common. So there are grants, and the university will apply for a grant, and the grant could be, you know what, we're going to get a grant as a university from the federal government or from the state government to look into advanced nuclear energy and nuclear energy processes, for example. And next thing you know, the Chinese are basically trying to find businesses that are cooperating or working with the university system and investing in those companies, and then exporting that technology once they get it and steal it back to China. So you really can't patent this information because they've already stolen it. And they know exactly what they're doing. This is happening in every state in the country. Certainly it's happening at the universities. And I'm just glad that Pompeo is finally talking to the governors and saying, look, you're part of this. Just because you're not elected at the national level doesn't mean that you shouldn't be paying attention to this potential rival of the United States. So any final thoughts on that? Nope. It's
Wraps
good.
it up.
So next up, we have the dumbest bill in America. It's the dumbest bill in America. And our assistant producer, Chris Hopkins. Do we have music or some sort of segue into the dumbest bill in America? Oh, yeah. And here it comes. So I think that was Beavis and Butthead. And so the dumbest bill in America it's called the New Way Forward Act. The New Way Forward Act, it's a bill to eliminate the borders of the United States of America. In other words, the bill at the national level says, we're not going to have borders. We're not going to enforce the borders. We're not going to arrest anyone when they come over the border without a visa, of course, or try to check in with the customs. And, we're just walk in, walk across, and I don't know, come here for the free stuff, stay as long as you want, wreak havoc, go back home. You can cross back and forth. I mean, this is insane because, I don't know, I want to hear what the Gen Z guys have to say about this. Logan, what do you think?
I think that straight opening up borders in any situation and on a nationwide level is an incredibly risky idea and a potentially dangerous one.
Why?
Because when we open up those borders, anyone can come in. We're not checking, we're not being careful, we're not being safe. Anyone from anywhere with any intentions, whether good, whether malicious, can step into our borders and do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Well said. And Logan.
This is virtue signaling. This is virtue signaling. That's all this is the new way forward is a new way backwards. You're looking at this and like what somebody's either not thinking or I don't know what they're thinking, but the details in this are ridiculous. It calls for the return of any illegal immigrant who was deported since 96, telling them, come on back, get in here. And there also something sneaky in there is they're upping the minimum sentence to get deported from 1 year to 5 years. So you can come in to America, steal a car. All right, we're going to arrest you. We're going to send you to prison for 3 years. Well, they're not going to deport you. So you get out and do it again.
So yeah, so you actually come here for the sole purpose of wreaking havoc. You wreak havoc. Maybe you serve time.
Maybe you don't show up to your court date because they don't have your address because you're an illegal immigrant.
And we don't even know who you are because...
Don't know who you are. Don't know your name. Don't know your face. Nothing.
Don't know when you got here.
This is giving unchecked rights to these illegal immigrants more so than even citizens have. Especially when you're talking about these additional documents and licensure that states want to push and that the federal government wants to push. When you're talking about that in the same season that you're mentioning legalizing illegal immigration, it's nonsense. And this is also incredibly disrespectful to the millions of people who have immigrated here legally and did it the right way.
Well said. Well said. Do you have relatives that came here?
I don't, but probably further down the line.
That are recent. Okay,
right.
Yes.
Nobody recent.
No one recently.
No,
okay.
well, my best friend's mom came from El Salvador. And
came here legally.
Came here legally 20 years ago, got her citizenship, and now she lives here. And she actually contrary to what a lot of people think, she supports Donald Trump. As an immigrant, she supports him because she thinks if you want to be in this country, you do it the right way.
You do it the right way. And we welcome immigrants, and we welcome immigrants who come here the right way and come here lawfully because we are a nation of laws. But this is H.R. 5383, the New Way Forward Act, and it's been, the key sponsor is Jesus G. Garcia, Representative Garcia, a Democrat from Illinois' 4th District. What a surprise, he's from Illinois. And has put this bill in. I think that presidents are made for their time, and this president keeps winning, and he's also, let's face it, he's certainly imperfect like all of us are, and we know that he is, but here's the thing. He is right on this issue, and he's fighting, and he's doubling down on this issue. It's driving the Democrats crazy. He's winning on this issue, and this particular bill, this dumbest bill in America, in my mind, tells me what the Democrat Party really believes in and what they really want to happen to America. They don't want there to be an America. They don't think we're an exceptional. They don't think that there should be a nation of laws. And here's the thing. I just want to finish with this. The reason why people come here is because we are a nation of laws. They're leaving a place where there is lawlessness, and they're coming here because we are a nation of laws. And you have your opportunity to go to court and to right wrongs. And as a result, that's why our society works. That's why their societies don't. And these very people, like Representative Garcia, want to turn us into a nation that is like the place that others are coming from and trying to escape from. Why would we want to be like that? We don't want to be.
Well, if you open up the gates to all these, illegal immigrants coming in, and then you pair that with New York's driver's license, giving those out, what do you get? You get millions upon millions of illegal immigrants pouring in, and the Democrats want them to be able to vote.
and they want to give them free stuff. I mean, it would. So here's the perfect storm. You have Garcia's bill. Let's just say if the Democrats took over the Senate, because of course Katie Tur thinks they're going to gerrymander it and take it over. So let's just say the Democrats did that and they took over the Senate, not from gerrymandering,
laughable,
but just they won.
Laughable.
And they had both. They had the president and they also had a Democrat Congress on both houses. And that happened, and they passed the New Way Forward Act.
I think we'd see a convention in the states there.
And then you would have Bernie Sanders saying, "Well, now we want everything to be free." The rest of the world is going to flow into this country, and our way of life as we know it will be over because it will be unsustainable for us to afford this. And it's unsustainable anyway, of course, if Bernie Sanders were elected. But this tells you who they are and how incredibly radical they are. Final thoughts on this, Gen Zers?
I think it's a ploy to generate votes to get, like,
It is.
It is. Like,
It
you
is.
can't look at it another way. It's truly what you said. It's radical. It's the radical left thinks that this is the radical left. Everybody, no matter how you look at this, it's too far.
Absolutely.
This gets rid of all the laws that the country was primarily founded upon when it comes to putting citizens first.
Yep.
And well, apparently we're not putting citizens first. We're putting anybody and their mother who wants to come into this country. They're going to come in, take all of our resources, and skip town.
Well, certainly, it's not going to make anything better. Obviously, I mean, look. Here's the thing: the country we have a country of slightly over 300 million people,
Yep.
and we have countries like China have 1.4 billion, and India that has well over 1 billion people. Let's just say that this happened, this New Way Forward Act happened, and this is going to be the final thought. And then you had, let's say, 500 million people want to come to the United States. You're more than doubling your population because guess what? You've decided to get rid of your borders. Now, what would that do to our environment? What would that do to our way of life? It's so stupid. I mean, I can't even make this stuff up. So, any final thoughts? The final thoughts. Go ahead, Logan.
I think going forward, whether you're Gen Z, millennial, whatever you are, whether you're left, right, let's take time. Next time we're looking at information, let's make sure that's credible. Let's make sure what we're reading, whether it be political or something else, make sure it's credible and make sure it's legitimate.
That's awesome. So that's it. Thank you for joining Mark of the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to our Gen Z guests, Logan Nagel and Corey Atanasoff.
Glad to be on.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are here. It's Mark of the Millennials, but it's Mark of the Gen Zers. And of course, I want to thank our producer, Adam Couture, our assistant producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and our website. See you next time.